up to Siman Mem Zayin, Hilchas Birchas HaTorah. So the Mechaber begins, Birchas HaTorah tzarech lizar ba ma'od. You have to be very careful with Birchas HaTorah. Now there's two reasons why I have to be very careful with Birchas HaTorah. The Mishnah Berurah explains in Aleph, Ayin b'shagas aryeh, demasik shebirchas HaTorah hi min HaTorah. The Shagas Ari's opinion is that the Birchas HaTorah that a Jew says in the morning is a mitzvah min HaTorah. It is one of the only. It's this one and Birchas HaMazon are the only brachos that are biblical. This is the only bracha lefneha which is biblical. And therefore, because it's deraisa, you have to be very careful. Also, because it's deraisa, a major nafkamina v'lokach im nistapik lo im birchas HaTorah. Sometimes people are tired; they don't remember if they said birchas HaTorah. Chayzim mevarich, you'll have to repeat because safik deraisa l'chumra. However, mikol makam kivan shehoya le'safik lo yivarich ela birchas asher bachar banu. Right, there are multiple brachas that we say for Birchas HaTorah. If you're not sure, just say Asher Bachar Banu. You definitely don't have to say all of it. Asher Bachar Banu is the ma'ula of the brachas. It's the most chashiv of the Birchas HaTorah, and with that, you're for sure yoytz to the biblical obligation. Therefore, all you have to say is Asher Bachar Banu. Okay, now it seems like this, that if you're not sure whether you say Birchas HaTorah, you should just repeat Asher Bachar Banu. However, Ayin b'shari tshuva shehebi b'shem k'tzas achroinim, t'sayvin d'misafik lo yivarich. The Shari Tshuva brings down from many poskim that say that if you're not sure, don't make a bracha at all. Says the Mishnah Berurah, "Be'emes kasha moed lismach aleim," but it's very difficult to rely on these opinions. Achar deharbe rishonim, considering so many rishonim, the Ramban, the Chinuch, the Rashba, soivim deberchas HaTorah min HaTorah. If you hold it's biblical, then there's really no reason. If it's derabanan, I agree with the Shari Tshuva, but if it's deraisa, you should have to repeat. But he says, if you remembered only after davening, so you already said Ahava Rabbah, so then it could be Ahava Rabbah your Yotze, even if you didn't have in mind, and even if you didn't say Psukei Torah immediately following Shmona Esrei. As we'll see later on, Ahava Rabbah could serve as Birchas HaTorah. Generally, that's where you know that you're having in mind when you're saying Ahava Rabbah that it should be Birchas HaTorah, and then right after Shmona Esrei, you should say Elu Dvarim Shein Lav Shir, etc. But even if you didn't, Ken Zayin, you could put that with the opinions that hold that Birchas HaTorah is only D'Rabbanan and not to repeat. However, the truth is, if you're not sure whether you said Birchas HaTorah, instead of repeating Asher Bachar Banu, the better options is to have someone be mitzi you, or daven, and l'chachila have in mind by a Ahava Rabbah or Havas Olam that it should serve as Birchas HaTorah, and then immediately following Shmona Esrei, you should say the psukim, Elu Dvarim Shein Lav Shir, etc. That is better than potentially repeating Asher Bachar Banu, because this avoids any shilas of Safek brachas. They would say that if you said Ahava Rabbah with the intention, that would also be to the Bechir Birchas HaTorah min HaTorah. Now, by the way, the Mishnah Berurah points out, Ubefrat Lefima Shemitzasi Acha b'Seif Ma'amar Mordechai, especially because the Ma'amar Mordechai holds us only D'Rabbanan. Uberchas HaTorah b'Tzibur l'Kuli Alma D'Rabbanan. By the way, the bracha before an aliyah is for sure D'Rabbanan. That's Kavat Torah. That's not Birchas HaTorah D'Oraisa. It's the same bracha, but that's definitely D'Rabbanan. Okay, Ma'od. I'll just run through this because it's Kedai. The words of the Mishnah Berurah is a very famous Bach on this. If you Siman Mem Zayin, if you look through the Bach, it's a very beautiful Bach where the Mishnah Berurah sort of summarizes based on the Bach. The reason why the Shulchan Aruch says you should be very careful with Birchas HaTorah is because Shalei Lilmad et sheyivarich, v'yivarich osa b'simcha gedola. You should say the bracha with a lot of simcha. The Metzinu Shamar Chazal Hamav Da'aretz, because the Gemara famously said, what was the cause of the Churban? And the Gemara says, V'yomer Hashem al ozvam terasi, because the pasuk in Navi says that Hashem says they forsake my Torah. V'amr Chazal, and the Gemara explains, Shedav is initial Nevi'im Hamav Da'aretz. They asked the Nevi'im, Shisay Oiskim b'Torah. The Chazal, the Nevi'im say they were Isaac and Torah, or Ma'ama of the Aretz. V'lakach lo yadu ma of the Aretz. V'kadosh Baruch Hu beichen levavas yada ki afa b'ishay yoiskin b'Torah liyoiskin l'shem limera Torah el makamay shalom dim shar chachmas. This is the Bach's Torah, the famous he said of the Bach. They were learning Torah, but Hakadosh Baruch Hu said al shalei baruch hu b'Torah tchila, or shalei baruch hu b'Torah, because they looked at Torah as not worthy of a first bracha. They looked at Torah like any other chachma. So, by the way, it's unclear. It could be they taka said Birchas HaTorah, but they didn't say it that they didn't feel that it was deserving of a Birchas HaTorah. Okay, therefore you should obviously be very, very careful. Fine. Run through some halachas. Beis tzarich levarach bein lamikra, bein lamishnah, bein lagemara, bein lamedrash. We pass in any form of Torah, whether it's Tanakh, Mishnayos, Gemara, Halacha, all require Birchas HaTorah. Good. Gimel. HaKoisiv b'divrei Torah, if you write Torah down, you're writing notes, even though you're not speaking it out, tzarech levarach. The Mechaber's opinion is that writing requires Birchas HaTorah. You're writing notes, it requires Birchas HaTorah. Now the reason why that's interesting is if you look at the next halacha, HaMahara b'divrei Torah, ein tzarech levarach. If you think Torah, that's not enough. So writing, I would assume writing, the reason why you have to make a bracha is because when you're writing, people think about what they're writing. No, evidently, writing is better than hirhur, because hirhur, the Mechaber says, there is no bracha, but writing, there is a bracha. So the Mishnah Berurah explains, HaKoisiv sirle deksiva odif mehirhur. The Shulchan Aruch's opinion is that writing is more chashiv than thinking. Thinking, the Mechaber holds no bracha, but writing there is a bracha. V'atam yeshar mishum da'avid ma'isa. Some opinions say the reason is because you made a ma'isa adif, and therefore because you did a ma'isa of ksivas haTorah, that requires a bracha. V'yesh armim, and the Rabbi Yonah says the derech haKoisiv v'hoitzi tevis mepiv. Rabbi Yonah says because the derech is that when you're writing, it's natural to say some of the words, and therefore mastama you said it. V'chol zeh beKoisiv svarim la'atzmei derech limuda you made in mashu Koisiv. Aval Sefer hamatik ve'enu mevakish lahavin ein tzarich levarach. This is only if you're writing notes, you actually know what you're writing. But if you're literally just copying, for whatever reason, someone pays you to copy, then no bracha is required. Inyan Maisa, and how do we paskin? So the Mechaber says you have to make a bracha when you write. Hiskimu achroinim, many achroinim hold shaloi lismei chal dasa Mechaber, not to be seimech on the Mechaber, because they actually hold that ksiva is like hirhur, and hirhur, according to many opinions, is lav kedibur dami. So there are many poskim disagree with the Mechaber. Levarach al ksiva levada b'chol gavni. Shem going inrak mahar b'divrei Torah. So because so many achronim disagree, what do? Roy l'chol koisiv b'dvar Torah sheyotzim mipiv ksas tevis. Make sure that if you're writing the words, if you're writing to say some of the words, or by the way, our solution is much easier. If you say the nusach of the bracha and the siddur, after the bracha we say Elu Dvarim Shein Lahem Shir and Koisiv Ochus B'nei Yisrael. So we say Tanakh, we say Mishnayos. So then the shaila is moot. This was only because they didn't say that; they were purely making the bracha on this act, and therefore it's better to actually say some Torah. Just to finish up, the Mechaber says in Daled Hamahar b'divrei Torah ein tzarich levarach. Thinking Torah does not warrant a bracha according to the Mechaber. The yachol v'hu adin the yachol lifsak din beloy nesinas tam l'dvarav, and you're also able to give a psak without explaining yourself, because that's not real Torah. The Mishnah Berurah says the hirer lav kedibur dami. The reason why the Mechaber holds you don't make a bracha when you think is because hirer is lav kedibur dami. L'fiza yesh lizar loisan alein debiyim matecha sefer sheyizaru lahoitzik sas divrei Torah mepeh achar bracha emeinomer psuki berchas kehanim ashar divrei Torah achar bracha. And again, if you're saying the bracha but you're not saying the psukim afterwards, make sure to actually say some of the words, because thinking Torah, a lot of times when people learn, they're just thinking. Thinking is not enough. We'll just end off with this. One quick point, by the way, is a very lengthy biur halacha where he proves that according to, let me just explain. If you look in the next page, the bottom of this Amid, Hagra b'biurei cholak al zeh. The Gra disagrees with the Mechaber. The Mechaber holds a mahar b'divrei Torah. You don't make another bracha. The Gra disagrees. V'svirle deloi gara zeh mihakoyre mikra bilvad et tzarich levarich v'afilu behir levad machmer shaloi lahar kol zman shaloi berich berchas haTorah. The Gra holds that mahar b'divrei Torah, you should not be maharer without making a bracha. Okay, meaning levad shaloi lahar kol zman shaloi berich berchas haTorah. The Gra says you should not think without saying berchas haTorah. There's a lengthy biur halacha that the biur halacha holds. He says it's misunderstanding what the Gra sheet is. The Gra does not actually believe that here her debitera is mamish so chashiv. It just when it less 1 second. The chashiv hefsek. Yeah, it's not that the Gra holds that here is kedibur dami throughout Kol Torah Kula. He holds that for limit HaTorah, the Kabbalah HaTorah was listening to a shir, and therefore the tzuras hadvarim is that here requires a bracha, but not that here is kedibur dami l'chol Torah Kula. I will stop here.